running tunnels, you develop the ability to not think but shoot. Because if you hesitate and think about it, you're the one that's probably going to die. So if there's movement or noise, you shoot. And that's what I did. I shot.
In this episode of Warriors in Their Own Words, we'll hear from C.W. Bowman. During the Vietnam War, Bowman served as a tunnel rat, an unheralded group of soldiers who infiltrated the vast underground web of the Viet Cong.
We heard about tunnels, and that was mostly from the old timers that were already there. You know, they talk about, Charlie popping up in tunnels and setting an ambush and ambushing a squad or the platoon, and then they'd melt away in the jungle. You'd never find them, and what they were doing was going down in tunnels. And they were digging since the French were there, and they were fighting the Viet Minh down there, so they've been digging tunnels for 80 years. So there was quite a complex of tunnels there. You didn't find them all the time, they were so well concealed. Normally you wouldn't find them unless you were in like bunker complexes and stuff like that, especially in the Cu Chi area. That's where the majority of all the tunnels were in our AO, our area of operation, and that's the area that was noted for tunnels. The laterite, or the dirt, the earth there, was so easy to dig in. But once the air hit it, the walls almost set up like cement. So they didn't have to use shoring and all that. They just dug the tunnel. And when the dirt dried out, it was almost like cement. So, and they dug away. We were doing a S&D, a search and destroy mission, and going through a village. And they came across a lot of the people in the villages had bunkers underneath their hooches and stuff, and there was this particularly large bunker, and they said, "Okay, Bowman, you're the new guy, you're going down in there, And I said, well, I don't know if I like this or not, but, I was the new guy, and I wasn't going to show that I was afraid to go down in this bunker, I guess it was a macho thing, I don't know. They gave me a flashlight, had a red lens on it, which actually you get down in a tunnel, you can't see anything with the red lens, but had my M6, I remember having my M16 and that flashlight, and I went down the steps into the bunker, and it was pitch black, but I could see light at the other end, or where the other entrance into the bunker was. And I was so scared that I focused on that light on the other end of the bunker. I had the flashlight in my left hand, my M16 in my right hand, and I walked towards that light. And there could have been 100 people in that bunker, but I didn't look left or right. And I said, all I need to do is make it to that light and I'll be okay. And I slow walked to that light, and I get out of that bunker. It was strictly voluntary basis. You didn't have to go in a tunnel. If you went in a tunnel and freaked, you never had to go back in a tunnel again. And you could do that real easy. You get down in a tunnel and they start closing in on you, or you hear noises and you start shooting, and you can get cranked up real easy and lose it completely, and probably make you go insane if you're not careful. A lot of tunnels you get into like a NBA base camp or base camp, and you start checking the bunkers out, but then you get down inside and the bunkers would have tunnels leading off of them. Sometimes if you were fortunate enough, you could find the entrance to a tunnel. Two of them we found was just by pure luck, because two NBA or two BC in one particular tunnel came out of the tunnel while we were there. They killed them, and then we found the tunnel where they came out, and that happened in two different occasions in the year I was there. Most of the tunnels were so well camouflaged, and I think they had specific rules and stuff, how to dig the tunnels, how to make their trap doors so they would fit. And once they closed that trap door, you couldn't even tell it was there. We would be in areas where you'd walk along and you look down and you see little piles of dirt all over the ground. Well, they would be digging tunnels somewhere in that area, but they would spread the dirt all out through the jungle, so they wouldn't have a pile of dirt somewhere. Yeah, a lot of the trap doors were small. Most of your entrances running the rest of the tunnel, so just different things you had to watch out. GIs had a habit of just tossing a grenade in the tunnel and say, well, that takes care of that, but wouldn't do any damage. Because mainly the first section of tunnel, you'd go in, it would make a turn. It'd either drop down and make a turn, or you'd go in and make a right or left turn and go a short distance, and then there'd be a trap door going down. And if that was closed, you didn't do any damage to anybody or the tunnel, unless for some reason they were in that first section of tunnel. Concussion, get them, whatever.
Even seemingly abandoned tunnels harbored potential dangers.
We had to fight some spiders and some, we called them well, they weren't fire ants, but they were ants they had over there that could literally take chunks of skin out of you when they bit. And they would hang nests of those in there. And there was all kind of, things you had to watch out for in tunnels. One story was that they would take bamboo vipers and nail their tails to a board and hang it from the ceiling. And you're going through there in the dark, and and bamboo viper, we called it the three-step snake. They bite you, you take 3 steps, and you were dead. But you had supposedly those things hanging down in the tunnel, and just different punji pits, false floors that you could fall through into punji pits. They had false walls in the tunnel where they could be on the other side, and as you're crawling through, they'd shoot you. One of the tricks I heard was they would wait for a couple guys to run tunnels, and when you went up through a trap door, when you stuck your head up through there, they'd take a steel or a bamboo rod and run it through your neck and pin you there in the tunnel. And of course, it'd freak out the guy that was with you, and you didn't have to worry about anybody running the rest of the tunnel.
During one trip underground, Bowman and his partner, Gary Heater, encountered a tunnel that appeared to lack any apparent exit.
Gary pulled the door off the tunnel, and I shined my light down there. I could see some ammunition boxes, but couldn't see all the way down the tunnel. So I told Gary I'd go first through this trap door. But the only way I could get through there was sit on the edge of the trap door and put my legs through, and then put my hands over top of my head like this, so my shoulders would be narrow enough to fit through. Never thought about how I was going to get back out. But anyway, when I dropped down, I had a pistol in my right hand, my flashlight in my left, and I just landed on my butt, shining it like this, and luckily there wasn't anybody down there waiting for us down at the other end of the tunnel. So, and Gary came down behind me, and as we got halfway down that tunnel, that's where we found that little escape tunnel off to the left. And that's where the picture came from, where they were, after we finished running the tunnel, we went back out through there and they took our picture. But we went down to the end of that tunnel and there was another trap door going up. So Gary says, okay, Bowman, he says, you went through the last one. He said, I'll push up on this. He said, you shine your flashlight and hold the pistol there, So I kind of leaned back in the tunnel and had my pistol and flashlight like this. And he pushed the trap door open, and nothing happened, So Gary kind of stuck his arm up there with the light first, and then just kind of eased up, looked over the edge, and he dropped back down. He said, God, he says, there's a booby trap up there, And so what the hell's up there? He says, I don't know. He says, but it doesn't look good, And we looked back up there, and I believe I think it was a claymore, a Chinese claymore was sitting up there on a tripod. I think it was just stored there, but we didn't know whether it was booby trapped or not. But we had claymores. The U.S. armies were about about this big, and they concave, had a pound of C4 in them, and had 250 ball bearings in front of that. And when you set it off, it'd throw out those ball bearings and kind of cut a path down through the jungle or cut people down or whatever. Chinese would make them about this big around and about yay thick, and they would be full of, usually, they would take our duds, bombs and stuff like that, and disarm them and crack them open, take the explosive out of them, and use that. And then inside of them could be anything, rocks, glass, chunks of metal, whatever, but they would just blow a path clear down through the jungle, no problem. And this is what was setting up there, So we both kind of eased back up there with the flashlight, looking over the edge, and realized, it was just something that was stored up there, but it kind of scared the hell out of us for a while. And we crawled up there and we found, that and some weapons and a bunch of rice and documents, and we searched that room. We couldn't find any other trap door, and they're fairly well made because they were real experts in concealing these trap doors and stuff. You try to probe around or whatever and find it, but you didn't always locate it. So anyway, we got everything that was in that room and hauled it out. A couple times you could hear movement up ahead of you, and we didn't always run tunnels. I mean, as a team, sometimes you just went down by yourself, and I'd gone in couple by myself, and came into a room, and I guess I might as well go ahead and say it. There was a lot of these. They had big rooms and stuff, and this one had like some bamboo beds. They'd take bamboo and split it up and make beds and stuff. And there was 2 or 3 guys in there. They were wounded or whatever. I don't know whether it was a hospital or just a recovery area or whatever, but they weren't seriously wounded, I don't think. But anyway, they had like their weapons up against the wall and stuff, and I kind of stumbled in there. Really, when I came up in there and shined the light, and boom, it was like Keystone Cops. They were there and I was here, and they started reaching for the weapons, and I started shooting, and when that happens, it's like it's just flashes, flash this happens, flash that happens, people hollering, screaming, people shooting. And when you shoot a 45 in a tunnel, I think you immediately go death, because you holler, you scream, your heart's pounding. I mean, it's all reaction. You really don't think. You just start shooting, and you want to get out, and you want to get out any way you can, and running tunnels, you develop the ability to not think but shoot, because if you hesitate and think about it, you're the one that's probably going to die. So if there's movement or noise, you shoot. And that's what I did. I shot. And get the hell out of there as fast as I could. And once I got out, it was, you were alive, but you were just so pumped up from all that, scared to death. And they say, what's down there, what's down there? And you said, well, nothing, And what I did is I took a charge back down and halfway down the tunnel, and said, I'm gonna collapse the tunnel, and set the charge off. I'm sure the tunnel wasn't collapsed or anything, because once we got outside, it just went boom, it just shook the ground.
Occasionally, the tunnel rats would unearth valuable intelligence.
Later on, we came across a bunker complex out in the Hobo Woods, which was part of the Iron Triangle area, our area of operations. And they found a tunnel out there, and I want to say it was Operation Manhattan or Fairfax or something like that. I can't remember, but found some tunnels down there, Gary and I, and Gary had, we went in the bunker, he found a shotgun and stuff, and I said, well, we're finding some neat stuff, and then we found a tunnel, and I guess it was young or whatever, crazy, whatever, but I said, well, there ought to be some neat stuff, maybe we can find some souvenirs or whatever, it was kind of that gung-ho, you're young, you're not going to die, somebody else is going to die, the type thing. So we went in the tunnel, and tunnel wasn't that big. I forget how far we went, but we found a room. It was full of documents and stuff. Found a map. Map was probably, I want to say about 2 or 3 foot long and about maybe 4 or 5 foot long. But it was in a tube, and Gary and I pulled that out, and it had a map of the whole area where we operated. It was Cu Chi and Tay Ninh and Trang Bang, Saigon area. But it had, I think, 30 or 40 some overlays on it, acetate overlays, and it showed all the base camps, VC base camps, tunnel networks, and a bunch of other things on there. And it extended the operation like about 2 weeks. So all the guys in the company were pissed at us anyway, because we had to stay out there in the jungle for a couple more weeks. But Gary and I were the ones that found that map in the tunnel. And there was a bunch of other documents, but for some reason I wasn't as scared in that tunnel as I was in the bunker. I guess it was because the bunker was the first thing, but still when you come out of them, you're pretty wound up, pretty cranked, got a lot of adrenaline flowing through you, so it feels good to be alive to get back out.
That was C.W. Bowman, a tunnel rat who served courageously with the 25th Infantry during the Vietnam War. Warriors in Their Own Words is our attempt to present an unvarnished, unsanitized truth of what we have asked of those who defend this nation. Thank you for watching, and by doing so, honoring those who have served. This program was produced by Evergreen Podcasts and Documentary.tv. I'm your host, Ken Harbaugh. If you've enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, and subscribe below.